Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry because I can, because I want to, because you come and listen to it every single week. Without further ado, let's get to today's show sponsor, the sponsor of this show, the best sponsor, the only sponsor we've ever had, but we love him still. Go Fast Don't Suck. Go check out Bill Dude at gofastdon'tsuck.net. Get your match jerseys, your banners, your dry fire stickers, your memes, because you can't live a day without a Go Fast Don't Suck meme. So go check them out. Without further ado, let's get to today's guest. Today's guest is Mr. Jason Clark. Jason, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey, Manny, doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on, and what a great plug for Bill and Go Fast Don't Suck, man. Yeah, where would we be without him?
We'd be slightly less entertained, and we would have not as nice things.
Definitely less entertained. That much is for sure.
That is absolutely for sure. So yeah, so Jason, thank you for coming on today. It's been a one in the making. We've kind of had to figure out schedules, but it works because I'm on vacation this week. For anyone who cares, this is actually recorded late July 2022, but I don't really think you care. But who cares? Anyway, so Jason, who are you and how did you get into shooting?
Yeah, so my name is Jason Clark. I live in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm a PCC shooter for the most part, grandmaster. Been a grandmaster for about a year now. I just love shooting rifles, man. That's I was not very different from a lot of the guys in competitive shooting. Like listen to JJ Racaza on Brian Conley's podcast. He's been shooting since he was like 9 years old. I was only introduced to handguns about 12 years ago, so not a new shooter, or a relatively new shooter in terms of the big picture. Definitely wasn't competition focused out of the box. It was just I was an adult. It's like, hey, having a gun for self-defense seems like the thing to do. A buddy invited me out to the range. I started shooting, and just kind of took off from there. I had a competitive spirit inside of myself, so after a couple of years of just standing around shooting on the square range, found competition, and that was history, man. Shot a couple different sports. Started out in kind of an IDPA style match. It was actually called GADPA, which was an offshoot of IDPA here locally in Georgia. So I shot that for 2 or 3 years, then got hooked up with USPSA, and been shooting ever since.
Excellent. So when you were shooting, what, GADPA?
Yeah.
What pistol were you rocking at that point?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been a Glock guy, right? I live in Atlanta. Glock's a local company, so definitely drawn to them. I'll tell you this, though. Glock wasn't the first gun I shot. The first gun I ever shot was a Springfield Armory XD subcompact. So, like the worst of the worst when it comes to what I feel, with, right?
Yeah, I feel sorry for you. I mean, that just sounds horrible.
Well, first off, it's a new shooter. Like a subcompact gun is like the worst thing you can shoot, right? Because it's going to be snappier. Your grip is going to be worse. It's just harder to shoot overall. And I don't know about you, but when I think of quality, Croatia is not the first thing that pops into my mind. So it was an experience. And then I went to a range like maybe 2 weeks after I shot that gun the first time, tried a Glock 19, and then boom, rest was history. Glock it was. Being a local, having them as a local company where they actually have like a tech support area where you can just drive over, and if you need something replaced or want them to just check out the pistol, they'll do it for you while you wait, or they did pre-COVID at least. I'm not sure if they're doing that anymore, but the Glock's just always been a fit for me. So I've owned dozens upon dozens of Glocks, as many gun owners have.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, it's kind of nice, Glock being right there. You can, because you can get a new frame. If you fuck up your frame from Glock, you can get like a new one for like $150 or something like that. It's like crazy.
I think it's $100, but yeah, like if you, your dog chews it up, or you, bust out the old Dremel and the soldering iron to do your latest greatest grip job, yeah, you can go get it replaced pretty easily.
Yeah. So were there always a lot of Glocks at local matches then?
Mostly. So GADPA being like an IDPA style match, it was pretty much an even mix of like, you had a ton of Glocks, a few CZs, just like you do in USPSA, and then of course a lot of 1911s or other single action only type guns like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there a lot of GFSS matches around there too, since Glock was so close?
There are, yeah. A lot of the indoor ranges host them. My home club, Riverbend Gun Club, hosts one of the largest events outside of the Gunny Challenge here locally. But believe it or not, never shot a GSSF match, not one.
But you can win Glocks. Like, you always need more.
That's what I hear, right? I have tons of Glocks, and actually, for about 4 years now. My wife works at Glocks, so I've got tremendous access to Glocks should I need them.
Oh, that's pretty cool then. That's pretty cool.
I never understood dudes that just like had guns stacked up in the safe that they'd never shot, but I do now.
Right? Exactly. Who doesn't need more? But yeah, so with GADPA, you were shooting Glock and whatnot, and you went to then USPSA.
Yeah.
What made you really fall in love with the PCC though?
Yeah, so going back before guns, something I've done since I was in high school, it's probably 15, 16 years old, as I got into competitive paintball.
Okay.
I had some buddies that took me out to shoot paintball. So we just like played in the woods like people do. And then again, competitive spirit burned, and I got into competition paintball. So like at a semi-professional level, I actually traveled the country just like USPSAers do today. So traveled around the country shooting events at kind of like their version of area matches. So I did that for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. I don't even remember. But the majority of my 20s was spent traveling the country. Now, a paintball gun's not like a real gun, but it is kind of like shooting a long gun, right? Because you got the little air tank that comes off the back, so it's kind of like a shoulder stock. So running around with a gun in my hand is something I've done for the better part of 2 decades, and it just felt natural.
Mm-hmm. So competitive paintball, you talking about? I think I remember watching ESPN, like they'd be in a little court essentially with big blow up things. Is that what it was,
yep.
or?
Yeah, actually. So when I first started playing back in the early 90s, a lot of it was still in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But then they came out of the woods and they started, they just take like an open field and like mow it out, and they build like, barricades out of plywood and stuff like that with barrels on top and things of that nature. But yeah, in the very late 90s, like 98 to 99, it kind of progressed completely out of the woods from a competitive standpoint. And it went to either the inflatable barricades or they did something called hyperball, which was like corrugated drain piping. And they would like build courses out of that stuff. That made it, obviously you said you saw it on ESPN, so it brought a little bit of commercial appeal because you could actually see what people were doing versus running around in the woods in camouflage. Mm-hmm. And from a competitive equity standpoint, it made it so the fields could be perfectly symmetrical, right? They were flat. Everything was mirror imaged. So it was all just game plan, strategy, and that type of stuff. You didn't have terrain and elevation and things of that nature that could make it unbalanced depending upon, which end of the field you started on.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you miss kind of doing that kind of stuff?
So it's funny you say that because the guys I played paintball with, I've had a couple of stints. So I played from, like I said, when I was in high school, from 95 to 98, moved to Georgia, started playing competitively in 98 and played that way through around 2004, 2005. And then stopped, did a whole bunch of nothing in my late 20s, and then got back into it with all my buddies. Because the unfortunate thing is when the best time for you to play is in your youth, right? You're faster, you're younger, got more mobility, but what you don't have is money to travel around and do all this stuff, right? So financially, it's hard to keep a team together unless you get sponsorships and stuff like that, just like in USPSA. So that's kind of what killed it early on. And then with a bunch of the same guys, around 2012, we got back together again, played for about 3 or 4 years. So from 2012 to 15, basically leading right up to me starting USPSA. The challenges were different through, right? Because like we're all in our 30s at that point. We have money, but what we don't have then is time. So a lot of parallels to what we do in USPSA and other shooting sports. It's a balance between time, money, and of course your level of commitment and what you want to do with it. But
mm-hmm.
I do kind of miss it. But what I don't miss is trying to keep a team together, right? So like a typical team of guys is going to be anywhere. It depends what type of sport exactly you're playing, what version. But anywhere from 8 to 12 guys you've got to manage, and that just gets to be a logistical nightmare when you have people that all have different priorities in life. The number of events I've played in, like torrential downpour rain, never fun. So one thing I like about USPSA and kind of being a solo entity, if I want to, if I wake up in the morning for a club match and it's a torrential downpour, I can just roll over in bed and not shoot that day, and nobody's mad at me. Mm-hmm. But you bail on 10 of your buddies to play paintball, you got some explaining to do the next time you see them.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely understand that one for sure. But yeah, so that's kind of cool. Now, oh well, I lost that train of thought. It's okay though. So you've been shooting PCs for the longest time. You've been shooting like custom build guns, right? Like you built them yourself, like parts guns. How?
Yeah. So like the very first AR-15 I ever bought was like a Smith & Wesson Sport, whatever, way back when I first started shooting guns. So 2012 maybe. Mm-hmm. That's the only factory built gun I've ever owned. So beyond that, I just, you take that gun, your first gun, and you start upgrading it. I don't like this. I do like this. I want it to do this or feel this way. And that's just kind of always been in me. So like that very first gun was so customized. Like really the only things left at the end of the day was the receiver and the barrel, right? So with, there's a lot of fantastic guns out there. JP is one of the prominent ones in USPSA for competition. But like, most of the dudes at the top level, unless they're like a high level sponsored brand rep, like they're not shooting that gun as is. They're taking it, they're taking out the buffer system and going to a hydraulic. They're taking out a trigger for their trigger preference. And they're just replacing all these parts on a $2,000 gun. And that just really always like drove me insane to spend that kind of money on something and then to dump 20, 30, 40% of that gun's value back into it in custom parts. So I was always a big fan of just taking stuff that I've learned through the years, what parts and pieces I like, get them together, get the level of performance that I want, and make it my own. The handguard I like, the trigger I like, the buffer system I like, and make that gun do exactly what I want it to do.
Has being a tinkerer like that bitten you in the ass before, though?
Oh yeah, you've had total turd guns for sure, like stuff that would go bolt action in the middle of a match, and that's part of the learning process. If you're going to be a tinkerer, you're absolutely going to have stuff that doesn't work. And the unfortunate thing is, no matter how much you test it and practice with it and stuff like that, usually things like that always like to rear their head at a match. So I think the last time that happened was maybe the spring, or not spring, winter, even like January, February of maybe 2021 was the last time that had happened. I'd actually just I shot a blowback gun forever that I built from mostly tack-on parts for a while, got lured over to a SIG MPX and shot that for a little more than a season, and just didn't do well with that gun from a cleaning and maintenance perspective. I like to shoot guns. I don't like to clean them. The MPX was a fantastic performer, but I found especially as it got to high round counts, when it got to like 14, 15,000 rounds after that first year of use, no amount of cleaning, no amount of parts replacements, springs and things like that would ever get that gun back shooting the way it was when it was brand new. So as much as I really enjoyed it, it just wasn't the gun for me, and it had to go. So I came back to a direct blowback gun, AR9, and the first couple of iterations of that gun weren't so well. I don't know if it was tolerance stacking or just parts that just really weren't meant to play well together, but like it would shoot great for a while. When I say it, turd, I don't mean like it's just not working at all. I mean, like it's got just random malfunctions, failure to eject, failure to feeds after 200, 300, 400 rounds, just enough that you'll see it at a big match, but not so much that it's easy to track down. You can go out, because you can go out for a practice day and shoot several hundred rounds and have zero malfunctions. And of course, with the ammo and primer crunch of these days, that's an expensive venture.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I can't remember a lot of people other than probably Lena who shoots a MPX at the high level.
Lena and Brian Harrington are the two names that come to mind. I know Brian, for example, he's got at least 3 or 4 MPXs, and who knows what kind of deal Lena's got in terms of how often she's getting replacement guns. But if you have that kind of hookup, I think the MPX is a fantastic gun. It's a little heavy for what it does, but all that's the piston system and all that jazz. But really good shooting guns. They're just not for people that shoot really high volumes and don't like take meticulous care of their gear.
Right. Yeah. I think there's an extensive part of us who are just like, clean it enough so it doesn't fuck up. Yeah. And like, I don't know, what's the last time you've had a gun be like perfectly spotless for more than a minute?
Just the new guns that are sitting in my safe. That's it.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
But that's also part of the equation too, right? If you're a high volume shooter or any kind of heavy user, you want to know what your gear can do before it does get to that failure point, right? So you want to know if, folks that are shooting open guns, they know the mags are a failure point. So they clean them between, every time they hit the dirt, they clean them, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of every match, they clean all of them, whether they touch the dirt or not. And you have to, through trial and error, find out where that breaking point's going to be. So, if I can shoot 5,000 rounds out of my blowback PCC before something is so clogged up that it just won't cycle or that it won't go completely into battery, I want to know that. So I can, if I ever have to push that gun to its limits, I have complete faith that it's going to carry through.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You that's an essential like part of competition, right? Like, I don't know. I don't like cleaning guns. So I'm like, well, let's push it till it dies. But so now with your new fancy shirt you're wearing, you're shooting at a Davinci now?
I am. So yeah, after the Kentucky section match about a month ago, some conversations started. There were some opportunities to team up with Davinci. Obviously, I've seen the guns around. Some of their team members like Mike Seifert, Cord Shield, I've had some success with the guns. So obviously, you know, I know they're not total lemons, right? So there's got to be something to it. And then several years ago, and actually where I first saw the name was with Tom Castor, who started shooting their guns a couple years ago before he moved over to carry optics mostly. So, you know, Tom is a fierce competitor, and I know he's not going to run some gear that's suboptimal. He wants every advantage he can get, just like the rest of us. So they'd always caught my eye, but I was never willing to put down the gun that I built to do that. Mm-hmm. But once we started having some conversations, and I started talking to David down there at Davinci, and kind of saw the business model that he runs, where, yeah, he's got his receivers and he makes all that stuff in house, but like the guns are basically, I don't want to say hand built because it's an AR-15, right? He's not like fitting pieces together necessarily, but you know, if you want this barrel, you know, a standard barrel profile or a lightweight, or you want a side charger, or you want to run a shield buffer or a JP buffer or whatever. If you've got preferences on some of the major working components of the gun, he's got like a you know, sort of a build list on his website built in there where you can pick the pieces and parts that you like. And it just so happened for me that like the options that he offered ticked all the boxes of what, you know, if I was building a gun from scratch, it had all the options that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome. Now, did you go with the shield buffer, or did you stick with, do you have like a JP in there?
Great question. So I am currently experimenting with the shield system. I've had the gun now for about 3 weeks, maybe. Put around 2,500 rounds through it. Shot what, two matches, three matches with it. I shot back-to-back club matches this weekend, and it's really interesting. I'll say that the tuning capabilities, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but it's got multiple little holes that you can put different springs, and it comes with two spring weights for the roller. There's a heavy spring and a light spring, and you kind of do those in any configuration that you like. So it can be, you know, just one heavy spring in position 3, just one heavy spring in position 1, light, heavy, light, you know, so you basically can tune it to whatever your load is. It also includes 2 action springs. So like, I think there's a 3-pound and a 5-pound action spring, and like the normal AR spring, like a carbine spring, is like 10 or 11 pounds or something like that. So it's really lightweight. But you can tune it effectively, anything from like sub-minor, you know, steel challenge loads, like if you want to shoot 90 power factor steel challenge loads, or if you're shooting factory ammo, which in a normal, like, you know, 14.5 to 16-inch PCC, that's pushing major power factor. It's getting up there to 160, 165, you know, thereabouts. And with all the different combinations that they have, you can tune it out to whatever you like. So I'm intrigued, is what I'll say about that buffer system. It's a really ingenious system. You know, obviously the MP5 is highly regarded for its smoothness when it comes to shooting, not so much on the trigger. And, you know, it's obviously a very old gun in terms of how long it's been around, but like in terms of shooter experience, it's phenomenal. And I think the shield buffer lets you do that with an AR-9 to a great extent. And yeah, hopefully we'll see. We'll see how it works out. We're still in the dating phase. I'll say that. But my go-to buffer prior to that, one I'd shot for 2 years, is actually the Blitzkrieg, the hydraulic buffer. I shoot their 50-20 SS, the short stroke buffer. So I've got, you know, 20,000 plus rounds on that system in my other home built gun, and really like it. So if for whatever reason the shield system doesn't work out, which so far so good, that would be what I would fall back to.
Oh, okay. Now, what do you think of the side charger?
So again, that's another thing. Hey, I'd never used it, right? And like, there's a lot of different types of side chargers. You've got like the Foxtrot mic version, where they have like a folding, non-reciprocating version. The Davinci method is obviously much simpler. They just mill a slot in the side of the receiver, and the charging handle bolts directly into the bolt, right? Or screws in directly to the bolt. I'll say this, so like the second match I ever shot with the gun was over at CMP, and they still had some of the classic Nationals stages on the ground. And there's a video where, so like the handgun start position, I think, was handgun in the box, magazine on your initial loading device on top of the box. And for PCC, obviously we can't fit in the box, so they flip-flop that, and we put our mag in the box, gun on the barrel, and the charging of the gun, the unloaded start, totally smooth, man. Between the 5-pound action spring of the shield buffer plus that side charger, made it super easy. And considering I had, like, you know, because I haven't been out practicing with the side charger specifically, or specifically doing any unloaded starts with the gun, it felt very natural.
Awesome. Now, I'm curious, because I don't think I've actually looked that far or that close at a Davinci yet, is the fact that, do you have to unscrew then the charging handle to then break the gun apart?
Yeah, so if you want to pull the bolt out of the gun, you do have to unscrew it. And the first time I took it apart, they've done some sort of thread locker that it's not like Loctite, like blue Loctite. When you break it loose, it's toast. It's more like a Vibrotite or something like that, where you can unscrew it and it's kind of gummy, so that way the thing doesn't work out on you, or at least mine is. When I took it out and put it back in, it didn't require any more any additional thread sealing on there, and it's been rock solid for thousands of rounds.
Awesome. That's pretty cool. So you're also running MBX mags, right? Like full builds. Oh, look at all that money. Look at it.
Yeah, I know, right? Can't hide money. Actually the MBX mags, I've been using them for actually just about a year. The Kentucky match, for whatever reason, has been like the worst match for me to shoot in terms of gear. So in 2020, that's when my SIG MPX started having problems. Its very first problem. And then in 2021, I had problems with Glock OEM mags, specifically their 24 round mag, which is kind of like a new intermediate size that they did. I don't know if you've seen that. It's not 140, it's not 170. It's just like they picked a random number of bullets. But I happen to just like the length for PCC in terms of what I carried on my belt to load to, because I don't like to load to the big stick. So I got those, right? And there was an unloaded start stage at Kentucky. Actually, it was my very first stage of the match. And I had a malfunction. And what I figured out is, like, I don't know how familiar you are with Glock mags, but like the steel tube bends around and like they have these fingers that kind of interweave together and they like spot weld them.
Yep.
Well, they use the same spring in that 24 round mag that they use on the big stick. So like I forget the number of coils, but I think it's like a 19 coil spring or something like that. So those 24 round mags apparently are just ridiculously oversprung. And what happened is like those welds actually started to like kind of bow out and do something like that. Caught the follower, and I had a malfunction like 3 rounds into a match. So I was like, man, when I figured out what that was, I was like, I'm going to do it. And I already had MBX mags, right? I already had a big stick, had phenomenal results with it. But I went to them full time. So I use the MBX mags. I use the big sticks for the PCC. I carry 170s on my belt to reload to. And I even do the 140s for my Carry Optics Glock.
High roller there. But hey, I mean, you find what works and you use it, right? Like that.
Absolutely.
It's like you don't change with like the recipe, right? It's like if a custom builder tells you, well, this is what you use, right? You kind of stick with their recipe to the most part and be like, I ain't fucking with it, Because then it's on you. If you fuck with it enough, it's on you, not the builder.
So many people cheap out on gear or don't replace springs or followers or what have you. And like, okay, I went out and bought this mag. It's really expensive. It's $150. Guess what? That's a single major match entry fee. Like, is it worth throwing a match away over a component of that item?
Yeah, like a $20 spring, maybe.
Not for me, it's not. So springs and followers get replaced regularly. Firing pins in the PCC get replaced regularly. Just part of what you do when you're a competitor that doesn't want to lose because of your gear.
Right. Well, especially when you're at the top level, right? Like that's definitely a thing you want to think about. Like the $20 you're going to spend here and there it could break your match if you don't replace it, right?
Yeah. It's easy to ignore that stuff until you break it. And again, that goes back to running your gear until it breaks. Figure out what those intervals are and work within the confines that the gun tells you it's happy.
Absolutely. Now, you've been switching optics too, haven't you?
Yeah. So you're talking about for the PCC specifically?
Yeah.
Because I switch a lot of optics on various platforms. So for about actually the whole time since I was shooting the MPX, so for almost 3 years now, I've been running an EOTech as my main optic on the PCC, and came to be like, as many things do, in a healthy debate online. So I was actually in it's like a local buy-sell trade forum, or just an outdoor forum, but one of the primary uses is to sell gear, and got into a guy like every page on Facebook or wherever you're talking, even USPSA gear. What optic should I get for my PCC, right? So everybody chimes in with their experience of, here's what I've got, here's what you should get, this is why I like it, and that type of stuff. And the typical recommendations were Holosun 510C. It's a very popular optic, and honestly, it's a great optic, and for the money, it's hard to beat. But a random guy came into the chat, and he was like, "Hey, why don't more people use EOTech?" And this was like maybe less than a year even after they had their big fiasco with like the thermal shifting of the reticles and stuff like that from the dudes that were like jumping out of planes at 20,000 feet and landing in the desert, and that 100-degree temperature swing was causing point of impact issues. So I was like, well, there's that. And the battery life stinks, right? Everybody knows that. EOTechs stink when it comes to battery life. So I'm like, those are two big reasons. And then the guy shot me a PM. And as it turns out, he was actually like one of the local reps here in the Southeast for EOTech. And he was like, hey, I think you'll like this. I think you'll see some advantages to it. And he basically just sent me an optic for free. He's like, here, give me your address. I'll send it to you. You can shoot it for as long as you like. Shoot it for a week, shoot it for a month, shoot it for a year. And when you're done with it, you can either send it back to me, no charge, just thanks for trying it out. Or if you decide you like it, I'll sell it to you for a price that, don't tell anybody, like a ridiculously low price. And it certainly didn't hurt my game. I'll say that. As a lot of shooters do. I notice you're wearing glasses. I don't know if you suffer from the stigmatism like I do. I wear contact lenses. So like when it comes to red dot optics, like it doesn't matter what MOA it is to me. It's going to be like a 14 MOA starfish and asymmetrical at that, right? So it's really hard to aim, and you just kind of, figure it out. There's a few optics that are better than others, but one thing I found with the EOTech, and specifically that kind of holographic projection that it does, it produced the clearest reticle of anything I've ever shot. And there were some added, I also shoot the one that they call the donut of death, right? So it's like a 1 MOA dot with a 65 MOA circle around it. And that circle, 65 MOA, at some of the very common distances that we shoot in USPSA, like 7 yards, 15 yards, 25 yards, paints the A zone, the C zone, and the width of the target perfectly at some of those common distances that we shoot at. So that's why I'm a big fan of the holographics, and specifically those circle dot reticles. Now, to your point, actually got my gun here. One of the ones I've been trying is actually the Vortex Huey. So their UH1 optic, which is basically like an EOTech clone, if you will. Does basically, it's in terms of measurements, it's nearly identical in terms of what the reticle does. But one of its key differences is, instead of just having the circle with like little hash marks at the top and left and right, it has like a little triangle at the base of the unit. So at that 6 o'clock position, it's got a triangle, which is like a close quarters 0, if you will. So at 7 to 10 yards, if you do like a normal 25, 50 yard 0 on the optic, that little triangle is actually a 7 to 10 yard point of impact. So for very close targets for a PCC, you got to contend with height over bore. So it's actually a nice advantage, because I can, number one, you get shooting enough and you just instinctively know the holdover, but this also gives me a visual reference that if I put that triangle, on a zone of a head box with a tight no shoot, I'm catching it every time, getting those A's.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Now, have you ever thought about using a prism sight due to your astigmatism?
So, obviously it's going to give some of the same advantages of the EOTech and the Vortex Huey, is that it's got, usually those have etch reticles. It's more of a holographic projection. You also have the advantage that the reticle's there if the battery ever dies. But I haven't, except for defensive guns. I'm not, most of those prism sights are like the 20 millimeter or 30 millimeter tubular sights. And I just like the bigger field of view on the larger optics.
Gotcha. Makes sense though. Now, I have definitely had issues, with our astigmatism. Doesn't matter. It looks kind of funny, but I've noticed the bigger the dot size, the crisper for my eyes the reticle is. So like an 8 or even at a 5, it's a lot crisper than like a 3 or a 2. And then now that I've gotten an 8 for my soon to be open gun, that thing is like super crisp, super small. It doesn't seem that big.
Sure. I mean, the less you turn up the optic, the less it's going to bloom, and it's going to bloom for people without astigmatism, I presume. Obviously I don't have personal experience with that, but the lower intensity the dot is on, the crisper it's going to appear for anybody. So I think there's some advantage to that. There's obviously dudes on both camps. There are guys that are like, one MO. There's guys shooting 1 MOA RMRs. Obviously there's a huge prevalence of like 3.25 MOA guns or dots, like with RMRs and some of the other stuff. I'd say 6 is probably one of the more popular sizes for competitive shooting, but it's definitely interesting when you get into some of the larger dot sizes, because for what we do, it's certainly not going to hurt you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not going to hurt you. The only thing is like if it's super distant shots, but I mean, like maybe at a PCC match, that really doesn't matter because it's a PCC and it's built for longer distance, but yeah.
Well, so, you say that actually. Let me stop you right there, because this is actually a hot point of contention for me. There's obviously big debate because we had the big 4 nationals match that got broken down into other matches, right? And everybody starts like redhead stepchilding PCC if it should get paired with this division because of this and this division because of that. I find it very interesting that at local matches, state matches, section matches, and area matches, nobody seems to complain about everybody shooting together. Everybody has fun. The stages are challenging, but all of a sudden we get to nationals and like, whoa, PCC should be out here shooting 100-yard shots and all this other stuff. That is not the game of PCC and USPSA. Let's look at the stats there. At the end of the day, it's 9mm, right? So it's the same minor scoring that a carry optics gun is shooting. For the most part, unless people are shooting just factory ammo and a 16-inch gun, the velocities are quite similar. You know, I'm shooting 135 power factor, give or take. So an open gun is actually going to be better suited to shoot 100-yard shots in my PCC because of bullet drop and things like that. Just because, you know, from a pure velocity perspective. Yeah, I have a shoulder stock and that makes it more stable. But the PCC game is, in my opinion, is not about long shots. It is about shooting fast, shooting accurately, and maneuvering, you know, a 7 or 8 pound gun in a tight course of fire that is generally more geared towards handgun shooting. Now, there are some stages where there are some distance options where a PC shooter may take a shot, you know, a cross base shot at 35 yards where a handgun shooter is going to get a lot closer. But in my perspective, that is just the sign of a good stage. It has options based on your division. You know, guys that have optics are going to take longer, riskier shots. Guys with iron sights are going to generally get closer. Guys that are shooting irons and low cap, they're going to do whatever they can do to minimize makeup shots. So it's all just part of the game, part of the division. I look at PCC as an open minor with a stock that just makes it more competitive. You know, if you're going to be the type of person that looks at the combined scores for a match, which, as we all know, is not the right thing to do. We're all just, you know, if that's the case, PCC or open, pick your poison. We're all cheating, but it's just different games, right? Open is about going fast, having a reasonable number of Charlies to you know, because of the points advantage there. And, you know, if you can go really fast, you can shoot looser. PCC is, you know, it's kind of the same game. It's about going fast, but there are so many people that can do it accurately at that speed. It's about accuracy and precision, and more importantly, maneuvering the gun.
Oh, absolutely. Now that you mentioned the Big Four splitting up, how would you have, if you were made that decision, what division would you put PCC with?
I would have left optics with optics and irons with irons, personally.
Okay, so we think the same way. So okay,
yeah, there's no specific other, you know. You put two minor divisions together, you put two other divisions, it could be minor or major, so that's kind of a wash. But the other thing, you know, when they made this split, they kind of touted it as we're gonna split this up based on the number of people signed up to maximize capacity. But if you look at the signups, that's not at all what happened, because Race Gun was sold out almost immediately, and PCC in production, you know, even today have, you know, over 100 slots available, or about 100 slots available. So. You know, not to mention that a lot of the sponsored shooters, or even just top, you know, people that do it regularly, that shoot, you know, if they shoot an Infinity or they shoot an Atlas or whatever, they're probably shooting open and limited. So it would have given those folks a chance to shoot 2 matches instead of picking one or the other.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So I don't care that they split it this way. I think, you know, just like Carry Optics and PCC shooting together last year, everyone I've spoken to really enjoyed that match. They thought it was challenging in various ways for the different divisions. And on the whole, it was just a good match. And that's what it's all about, right? You challenge divisions in different ways because they all have different capabilities in terms of the optics, capacity, scoring. And, you know, a good match is going to be competitive no matter what division you're shooting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially just don't look at the overall, because that's silly. I mean, unless your goal is to absolutely not be the last competitor on match day. I mean, that's like the last one. But,
you know, in addition, one last thing on that, it's like, you know, you say, oh, you got a rifle at a
pistol match,
match, right? But like, if people are of equal ability, open is going to beat PCC every time. And if open is not winning, it's because you have a subpar competitor. Of all the majors that I've won in PCC, you usually just barely crack into the top 10. So I think like maybe 5th or 6th is the highest in the combined results I've ever been at a major, even winning the match in PCC. Because when I have other open, you got open grandmasters out there shooting with major scoring and guns that are generally more maneuverable, and that's a favorable attribute on more than half of the stages across a 10 or 12 stage match, they should beat me every time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, major power factor, right? I mean,
major. I love PCC. You know, in regards to major power factor, I would be super cool if we had PCC major with 170 millimeter mags.
Don't you speak? Someone would be like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, I may be alone in that because I can actually reload a gun on the clock really well, even in PCC, but I think that would be really interesting.
It would be, honestly. It'd make things more interesting, right? It would make them have to reload during a stage instead of just, I'm gonna have this giant stick out the bottom and be like,
yeah,
I'm gonna.
It's kind of like it's like single stack major versus minor, right? You got a capacity variance. Mm-hmm. And those minor guys don't have to reload as often, and they're at a scoring disadvantage. Doesn't mean you can't win. You can win, but you got to be getting them alphas.
Oh, absolutely. You got to always get them alphas. Like more alphas, more better, right? So
always.
So currently, you said you're a GM now. When you originally came into the sport, into PCC, where did you start?
I started in A class.
Oh, okay. Now, how long did it take you to go from A to G?
So I started shooting USPSA in 2017. I think I made master in 2019. So about 2 years to go from A to master, and then GM took about an additional 2 years. So I've been a master for just over a year now, a GM for just over a year now.
Okay. Now, what was like the biggest hurdle eventually to get from M to GM?
So I'll even back it down lower than that. So like going from starting in B class, right? Most people kind of end up in B class, and that's where a lot of them kind of live and die in USPSA. It's not that there aren't good shooters in B class or A class. What they lack is the consistency to perform across a large match and do that 10 out of 10 times, right? They see people shooting fast and they want to emulate that and go fast, but what they're not able to do is get the hits, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens as you progress through the sport, you definitely don't slow down. In fact, you get faster, but your abilities, what you see and what you can do, catch up to what your eyes want to do. And you just start landing those things more and more. So progressing from A class and beyond is all about consistency. There's lots of good shooters in A class and B class, but what they can't do is tie that together across a 6 or 7 stage club match or a 10 or 12 stage major and have that consistency that you need to do it every time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I agree with that. It's my problem.
Yeah.
Right.
People will talk about match speed, right? If you see me at a local, guess what? You got a good chance to beat me at a local, because when I'm at a local, I'm trying new gear. I'm trying new techniques. I am, pushing myself to see where the wheels fall off, and whether it's speed or accuracy. Like if I'm going out to shoot a local, I've always got something I'm there to do. I'm either trying new gear. I'm going out to, let's say I had a bad match where I shot 86% of the points and I'm down on myself and I'm trying to clean that up. I'll go out with the goal of, hey, I'm going to shoot 95% of points tonight. Or I had a match that I shot clean, but I just wasn't as fast as I wanted to be. So I'm going to go out tonight, and my goal is to just have the lowest raw time and, points be whatever they are, and we'll work it out and find that balance. But when you get to a major, things are different, right? When I'm at a major, I'm never going full speed. You go to major, 85 to 90% of your speed and your capability, because you want to deliver things that you can do 10 out of 10 times. If you go out there and, you can do it 9 out of 10 times, and it's a 10-stage major, that means you're going to have one dumpster fire, and that dumpster fire could very well cost you the match.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Now, when you're speaking about testing gear at locals, Crocs or flip-flops?
So, yeah, good point. So I have both. I was never a Croc fan, but the off-road strap in the back definitely helps. I've shot a couple matches in flip-flops, not gonna lie. Steel Challenge specifically, right? Because except for the one stage, you don't have to move. So Steel Challenge is easy in flip-flops, but I have shot the stage that requires movement in flip-flops, and that was fine. Mm-hmm. I've even shot a local match in flip-flops. I got 4 or 5 stages in on a 6 or 7 stage match and had a lead, and I was like, see what I can do.
There you go.
I'm good with either.
Yeah. Now, what about slides?
I think that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a little dangerous. Those things will flip, the tip, if you catch it on something, those will flip over. There's nothing to hold them there. So not a big fan of soccer slides. That's for after shooting.
There you go. Exactly. It's all about footwear.
I've even been eyeballing. So I wear reef flip-flops a lot of times, the fannings that have like the built-in bottle opener and stuff like that. Very handy for these summer months at the pool or the lake. But they also do golf versions that have like little plastic golf spikes on the bottom for that extra traction. So, that's something I've got my eye on.
There you go. So Reef needs to sponsor you. Is that what you're saying?
I'd be cool with that. I've been wearing these things for over 10 years. I've got 5 or 6 pair right now. So yeah, they should.
Yep. Pay me them shoe bills, right? Exactly. It's just that's always fun. I always like fucking with you on them because it's like flip flops. Well, we had a message. It's like you wear flip flops to Area 5 if you could get Coley to do what?
I forget how we even got on the topic, but I tried to get Shane to wear some cutoff jean shorts, jorts.
Yeah.
He was out on the lake or something one day, and we chat on Instagram occasionally, and I forget all the circumstances, but it's been full court press to get him to go that way. But I don't think it's gonna happen.
I mean, you never know. We could always well, sorry, we gotta cut your shorts because they're too long, right? They're too long. They're too past the knees. No, it'll be pretty cool. I think he's shooting this match. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's shooting the same rotation I am. So he's shooting the Friday full day, Saturday morning or whatever.
Yep. I guess when I look at his squad, I kind of forget he's on that squad because there's other people on that squad.
Yeah, it's a weird squad, right? Because there's a lot of the whole Glock team is shooting, and there's a couple other super talented shooters. There's a couple of dudes I've never heard of either. But it was a locked squad, so I'm not sure how that all came to fruition.
Yeah. I think originally it was just Casey, Jesse, and and then the Glock squad. So yeah. Then it became the OG squad. Mostly OGs because when Travis is on that squad, Max is on that squad.
Okay.
So. I think so, and then I don't know how some of those people got on there. I don't know, to be honest with you. But yeah. So let's move on to that a little bit. I'm excited for Area 5. This will come out after Area 5, unfortunately, but I'm excited. It's not your fault, just how I do these things, right? I record these in somewhat batches because I like to take a week off. But I don't want to take a week off on the shows because the listeners, I love you. But yeah, so Area 5 will be fun. It's 15 stages over a day and a half. So that's kind of exciting. I mean, you get done on Saturday afternoon, you can go home at that point,
That's the game plan. So when Nationals was originally announced for Colorado out of Cameo, coming from Atlanta, I used to do the air travel thing back in my paintball days, and that was a huge hassle flying with compressed air cylinders after 9/11 and all that jazz. So I was I really got not a lot of plans on hopping on an airplane to travel with guns. So when Cameo was announced, I was like, all right, well, I'll just find some other big matches to shoot. And then, so Area 5 popped up and I was like, wow, this is 15 stages. I'm like, I think the entry fee is $200. I'm like, that's a lot of shooting for that kind of money. I'm in. It's a pretty long drive from Atlanta. I think it's gonna be about 11 hours for me, but it's straight up I-75. So it should be a nice, easy drive. So I got all jazzed about it. And that was going to be, aside from Area 6, that was going to be my big match of the year. And then I ended up signing up for Nationals anyway.
Well, yeah, you signed up for Nationals, and it moved closer, so that's kind of nice. So
yeah, I was already signed up and committed to it anyway. But yeah, moving back to CMP, 90 minutes from my house is definitely nothing I'm complaining about.
So are you going to stay at home those days, or are you going to stay in a hotel?
No, I'll do a hotel. Those morning rotations would be too tough, and because I think the first day of the match is on Friday, you never know what Atlanta traffic is going to be like. So no, I'll just do the hotel thing or get a house or whatever for the duration.
Yeah. Team Davinci, get a house.
Team Davinci. So, I mean, I was already signed up for that before the Davinci thing came together. So we actually haven't discussed that. I'm not sure if they're doing something or not. So
right.
Thanks for the reminder. I need to ask.
Well, yeah, you can always ask the one person who's going to be at Area 5. Well, Corey's supposed to be there too. So that'll be kind of
Corey
nice.
will be there. Yeah. He's shooting the other rotation, but yeah, he'll be there.
Yeah. If he's shooting on Saturday, Sunday, which I mean, I guess it's a wash, right? Everyone gets the same amount of time. Some people just got to shoot more in the morning than some people shoot.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I did it is with young kids in the house, that gives me a Sunday to spend with the kiddies. So they're in school or daycare or what have you during the week, so I don't miss I just miss a few hours in the evening to be gone during the week. So I'd rather do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the stages look good. I don't know how much you've looked over the stages or match books, so.
I have looked at them a little bit. They look fine. Obviously you've seen them on the matchbook and seen them on the ground. Usually it's two different stories, but no, I'm excited. I don't see anything that looks ridiculous. I think it's gonna be a fun match. I like the round count is varied. I think I saw a fixed time stage in there, so that'll be cool.
Yeah. Have you ever messed with the fixed time other than a classifier?
So oddly enough, I'd never shot a fixed time until this past weekend. I was shooting at East Alabama Gun Club in Phoenix City, Alabama, and shot my very first fixed time classifier. And it was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fixed time is definitely interesting. It's like Virginia count, but not like Virginia count. It's It's definitely something to read the rule book on, I guess, to make sure you are fresh about those when you go to those.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure out how to maximize points, right? If it's, I think the fixed time stage at Area 5 has some movement element to it, so you just got to figure out how to maximize, what makes sense to shoot at, what doesn't. If you can't shoot at everything, like I think there's going to be a little gaminess to it for some divisions for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or especially your skill level, like, right? Do you go and maximize points somewhere else, or do you just kind of, or yeah, whatever you're more comfortable with? If you're not good with running, don't run, I guess, right?
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm excited. It'll be fun. I think this will be my first level 3 match. I don't know how many level 3s have you gone to by now?
I've shot 2 Area 6 match twice.
Okay. And that's both been up in what, North Carolina for you then?
No, the first one I did was in 2020 that was at Volusia down in Florida. And then I did not shoot the Area 6 match the first time. It was at Rowan in North Carolina in 2021. And then I shot it this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Excellent. Wasn't 2020 like moved because of COVID, I'm assuming? It was, same location, but time-wise? Because it seemed like it was later in 2020.
Everything, yeah, it was. Everything got all jumbled. That's right. And that's actually how I ended up shooting the Kentucky match for the first time, is because I was signed up to shoot PCC Nationals in 2020. And then, yeah, because of COVID, like I was scrambling to find big matches to shoot as a run-up to Nationals. So Area 6 was already on my radar, but it was supposed to be like April in Florida, which sounds lovely. And as it turned out, I think PCC Nationals ended up being in June. And Area 6 was maybe July, something like that. So they turned from like, the Area 6 was going to be a pleasant match in the springtime in Florida to blazingly hot in the middle of summer in Florida. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely an interesting layout how that went. So typically, do you dry fire, or are you all just, my match is my practice is local matches, or what?
My practice, for the most part, is local matches. Having 2 young kids, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old in the house. They take, outside of work, they take almost every drop of extra time that I have here at the house. So unless I've got something new going on, like a new gun, a new optic or something like that, not a lot of dry fire happening, whether that's handgun, whether that's PCC. That's one of the things I love about the division, and some people may hate the division because of that. With a handgun, when you don't shoot a handgun for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or something like that, that skill starts perishing almost immediately. Not having it in your hand is enough that muscle memory kind of starts to fade on you ever so slightly, and you lose the edge. But one of my favorite things about the PCC division, at least for me, may not be this way for everybody, but I'm so tuned in with the setup of the stock and the grip and how everything fits together and how that mounts to my shoulder, that I can put the gun down for 2, 3, 4 weeks, pick it back up, and it's like it was never gone. So it's one of my favorite things about the division. I don't want to say you don't have to practice, because there's tons of people that have to practice. I have just a little bit of natural skill when it comes to eye-hand coordination that's probably helping me out here. But for me personally, I get to put the gun down and don't have to dry fire a ton. I don't do very much live fire practice for that same reason. If there is if there's some new unique challenge in a match, like at Nationals last year, they had that weak hand reload stage, the 2-string thing where you had to like reload with your offhand. Mm-hmm. I practiced that, obviously, right? Because like I've never done that before. I think most people haven't done that because it was kind of an awkward maneuver. Went out and practiced that for 20 or 30 minutes, got comfortable with it, and off we went.
Okay, now I've actually never noticed any PCC shooters about that. So how does a PCC shooter do that then?
So I shot the match with an extra magazine pouch that was just oriented the opposite way. So I'm a right-handed shooter, so most of my mags go to the left side of my body. I just had one pouch configured that went the opposite direction. So I shot that whole string with my weak hand and then reloaded also with my strong hand.
Oh, okay. So like it came off the gun. Did you hit the button then with like your strong hand, or?
So I think if I remember that particular stage, I think you shot the first string freestyle and then you had to reload and shoot the opposite string. So I think I was able to drop the mag with my normal hand. I honestly don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's been like 8 or 9 months ago. So it's out
right.
of my head already.
Exactly. Yeah. So then you just bloop, put it in there. I knew a lot of pistol guys were doing it like like they flipped the mag around on a magnet or something. Everyone did everything a little different.
It wasn't as awkward as I assumed it was going to be.
Yep.
It wasn't, and it also wasn't a stage that you were going to win the match by or lose the match by. It was just one that you had to survive and get points.
Right, exactly. Well, and I think that was the stage, if I remember right. I think that was the one that not Vlieger, Freilich. I think that was what
Freilich disqualified. Yep.
Yeah, the guy winning the match at that probably by that point.
So I think he was either winning the match or just within a few points of Max, and they were of course leading up to that big ammo can stage where you had to like chug the 30-pound ammo can down a 45-yard bay.
Mm-hmm.
And that stage was like built for Josh, right? Like big dude, that 30-pound can wasn't going to slow him down one bit. So I think he definitely would have won that stage, and it would have put him in contention to win the match for sure. So that's definitely a bummer.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a bummer. That's for sure. It definitely is, and it's cool to be able to see those top guys go at it, right? You know, Max is now undefeated, but it was nice. It was interesting to see last year, you know, that it was very much a mix throughout the first 2 days.
That's the thing. Even for the last couple, for the last 2-3 years, he's not just run away with all these matches. There's always been somebody in contention. It was just a matter of Max was able to do it across, all 12 stages or 15 stages or 18 stages or whatever it was. And, the other guys fell short. And Max even, he didn't have a perfect match. He was shooting the JP5. I think it was, at least his first major that I saw with that gun. And he actually had a wicked malfunction shooting the class, what was to be the classifier stage, the trigger freeze classifier. He had a big jam with the JP5 on that stage, which is why he wasn't in the top of that stage.
Oh yeah, exactly. I didn't know that he switched from his breckie build, his custom breckie weird contraption with quarters in the back.
Yeah. Quarters are a trick of many PCC shooters, myself included. But that's the one thing I love about Max is he's a tinkerer like I am. I mean, there's springs and all kinds of buffers and stuff around here to try. And I think everybody was kind of shocked when he showed up to Nationals shooting a JP factory gun.
Yeah, that is, well, I mean, it probably wasn't 100% factory. He probably fucked with it a little bit, I'm betting.
I don't know.
We'll have to. One of these days, I'll have to ask him whenever I see him. I don't know. He's supposed to be shooting a match, I think, this weekend or something. But I think maybe he's shooting the Trident match this weekend. I don't know because I'm not his babysitter. God, if I didn't know everybody's schedule in the whole shooting community, God, that'd be that.
It's good on you for even thinking about it, man. It's hard for me to keep up with my own shooting schedule, let alone other people. So.
Well, it's very interesting, especially now being super involved with my club. It's like how many weekends I'm actually on the range. Just, might not be shooting, but it's like, oh, we got to get ready for the match. So it's like I'm 2 months out, like, oh, we're going to go set this up now because it's really interesting because of how our bays are set up. We have 10 bays set up only for events, right? So that'd be USPSA matches, the well-armed women or our 3-gun guys. Like it's set up, it's locked. The bays are like locked off. So general membership can't use the bays essentially, at least for the main 10 we use. So it's kind of nice. You can set up walls ahead of time and fault lines. So it's all just sitting there kind of half ready to go. And you're just like, okay, now we got to put targets out like the week prior. And that's all good. So it's a blessing and a curse because it's either there's something always like someone half-assed took something down. So it's not all down. Then you got to rip it down to put more shit up or.
Yeah, that's actually great advice for newer shooters to the sport, right? Going out and helping out with the setup day will give you some insight to the stage designer's master plan and how he plans on the stage to run and what quirks he's built into the stage. So for anybody looking for an advantage, I'd definitely recommend going out and helping out at your local club. Like, hey, you're going to, those guys will be really appreciative of it. You'll probably get to shoot your match for free. That's at least what my club does. And because we actually set up a week in advance as well. Our bays are still... general members can access them, but they just kind of have to work around our stages. They can set up the stage if they want to go put all the targets out. But yeah, we're able to put walls out and we put target sticks out, but just obviously don't put cardboard on until the morning of.
Exactly. Yeah. It's nice because then you get to know more of the community. You get to understand why you build stages, especially like one of our main match directors, Walt, he designed stages last year for nationals. He's the RM for Area 5. He's methodical. He has reasons why he does things, and you get to kind of learn, and it develops new stage designers and be like, well, why are you doing this? Or why does this port here in this stage? Instead of there being a mindless port of like, oh, there's a port. It's an option, right?
Yeah.
Why do I need to go to the port? Oh, there's no target that I need to go to the port. So why put it in the stage, right? So it makes you
and that's the cool thing about trying. So like this past weekend, I traveled and shot some clubs over in Alabama that I don't actually, one of them I've never shot before, and the other is CMP's local club match that I don't get to very often. But, you know, every match, because of their match director and who's designing stages, has its own unique feel. So that's one of the coolest things about the sport is you get good at your own club because you know how your club builds stages and what challenges they're often putting out there. But to travel around to other places and you know, experience other stages, other match director mentalities of, you know, how they like to design stuff, it really broadens your horizon when it comes to shooting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, especially like if you sometimes have we've got a couple clubs locally that are the beginner matches. Like if you want to, like, if you're just getting into the sport, I would recommend you go to this club. Nothing's going to be super difficult, but not like, you know, but the top guys are going to be able to perform it better, you know, with less mistakes. But the newer guys are still going to be able to get through it without being like, oh my God, I missed a target, or, you know, it's kind of one of and it's interesting, but there's definitely, if you only shoot at those beginner clubs and then you go to a better, like I'll say a better club with more difficult stages, maybe
Sure.
or challenges that you'd see in a level 2 match. And then they're like, why am I not at the top? I'm normally like winning my local match. And, you know, you kind of go I call them like level 1 pluses, I'd want to say.
Sure.
Right. And then you go and then you get your ass kicked and then it's okay.
Yeah, I consider my club to be one of those as well. A lot of the newer shooters that have gotten into, you know, they come out and they've shot their first major this past year, and they get out there and they realize that, hey, they're like, hey, this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And I'm like, that's because you shoot a really, really challenging club every month, right? Where we are testing not just your shooting abilities, but we're testing your stage planning abilities, I don't want to say memory because we're not talking memory stages, but, you know, we'll do stuff like where we'll let a target present itself at 2 different shooting locations to give you the options. Options are always good for this sport in terms of, you know, coming up with your own stage plan, but like B, give you the opportunity to kind of hang yourself and shoot it twice and things of that nature. So like, you know, slightly more complex stages in terms of the shooting challenge versus just like, you know, putting out weird props like Texas stars and complicated movers and things like that are going to malfunction and cause delays at your matches. Some of the best matches I've ever shot, including majors, had nothing more than just poppers. You know, no crazy activators, you know, maybe one or two swingers, maybe a max trap or something like that. But like skip all the gimmicky stuff that's just going to cause range equipment malfunctions and delay the match.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking about range equipment malfunctions, it's like, make sure, like, if you're going to put it in a match, either you can replace it with another if it dies, and or make sure that it works in the first place. Don't like, oh, like, sure, maybe your 4-stage or 5-stage local, it's okay to kind of struggle through it. But when you've got 200 fucking competitors who have to shoot it and it's a piece of shit, don't fucking put it out there.
Right. So my local club, Riverbend Gun Club, we hosted a Georgia State Championship for the past 2 years, and we were one of the first clubs in the Southeast. And I don't know if this is just a phenomenon of the Southeast, but like we started doing staff reset. Our state matches are all staff reset. And one of the big reasons we did that, number one, is to provide a value to the shooter. But number two, we were running half-day split formats. So AM, PM formats, you shot only a half day. So you would shoot our 10-stage match in 4.5 hours. Right. And to achieve that, number one, you have small squads. They were like 6 or 7 man squads, so it runs really fast. But with staff reset, you don't have problems. You don't have somebody that taped a target early, so you got to reshoot. You don't have malfunctions. If you did do an activator or a swinger, you've got the same guy resetting that thing every day, so he starts to see if the piece of steel is getting heavy or a cable's getting worn or just whatever the case is. And that's thankfully has started to run rampant here in the Southeast. We've got the South Carolina section match, the Carolina Classic in North Carolina, that are all doing this staff reset. A lot of them are also doing the half-day format. And honestly, that's what majors should be like. It boggles my mind that Area 6 this year was even staff reset because it was at the same club that the Carolina Classic is run at. So that's just a format they're used to. But like, blows my mind that you go to majors, especially nationals, and it's competitor reset. Like the match fee is what, $300? Like how much does it have to cost for you to put 2 more staff on there that you're paying, you know, what, $100 stipend, $150 stipend to be there? Like how much more across 500 competitors do you need to make it be an actual professional shooting event?
Yeah, and I definitely understand that. I mean, I think we want to, I don't know, at least in Michigan, we have lost shooters here locally. So, I mean, it brings down the staff pool. I mean, we have a good possibility of getting a lot of good staff when we come to our matches. But I don't know necessarily if we could put that out at the current state, because it seems like, I don't know. How has your shooting population been? Has it gone down? Has it resurged new people?
And you're spot on. The staffing is the big problem. Not every area, not every club can achieve this because they just don't have enough competent personnel to do that. My club match is slightly down. Like here, actually, let me pull it up here, pull up the old computer. We actually shoot my club match this weekend. We are at, see how many shooters we have signed up. We are at 94 shooters right now, which is actually a little light for us. So pre-COVID, we were regularly shooting 120 plus shooters, and we tried to keep it around 12-man squad. So we were shooting an 8 to 10 stage club match for $20 every month. So we've dialed that back a little bit just because of the number of shooters. But, you know, the other big thing I have about shooting at Riverbend is just the amount of talent that we have here across the different divisions. One of the reasons I progressed as quickly as I did in the sport and even jumped in at A is I shot with a bunch of really great guys, top level competitors from day one. So I saw the right way to do it. I saw the speed that you need to go, the type of accuracy that you need to shoot at. And like, so my club match this weekend, we've got 6 grandmasters in attendance. We've got 12 masters across various divisions. You know, oftentimes my club match looks more like, you know, some state championships when you get out to some of these random states somewhere. So we are blessed here in the Atlanta, Georgia area where we've just got, number one, tons of matches, outdoors, indoors. I can shoot almost any night of the week if I want to here in the Atlanta area. And then in terms of weekend matches, within 90 minutes to 2 hours of here, virtually every weekend I could go shoot a match if I wanted to.
Right, and that is pretty cool. Locally here, not so great. I mean, God, I want to think for me, like my club match is like an hour away, and then it goes to an hour and 10, hour and 35. Yeah, it's.
I mean, I think that's pretty typical, right? Because like ranges like that aren't generally going like in the middle of an urban or suburban area, so they're going to be out in the middle of nowhere. Right. So my club is about 40 minutes from my house, and then you know CMP, like I said, is 90 minutes. A couple clubs in Alabama, 2 hours away. I can be up to Belton Gun Club in Greenville, where the South Carolina State Championship is, also in about 2 hours. So,
you got a lot of options. That's kind of the nice thing too, right? Having the options of being like, well, I can't make my local club match, but I can go make this other match. But yeah,
hey man, nobody's making you guys live in Michigan. It's really nice other places, and we get to shoot year round. No snow.
Until like snow shits on your house and be like, what the fuck do I do? The roads are closed. You can't go anywhere.
That is the problem here in Atlanta. Everybody makes fun of us for our winter driving, right? But like, there's 2 problems. Number one, it would be financially irresponsible to have all the snow equipment here for the twice every 2 years that we have an event. And then number 2, I don't care what you Northerners say, it's hard to drive on ice, and that's what we get. You know, even up north, if you get just straight up ice, nobody's driving on that. You need snowpack on top of it to be able to drive. And the problem here in Atlanta is we very rarely stay below freezing for long. So if we get a wintry precipitation thing where it snows, it usually melts through the day, refreezes at night, and then we're at home eating milk sandwiches from all the bread, milk, and eggs that we took for the rest of the week.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely get that because people still don't know how to drive on ice. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah. So I don't blame you guys to not have it. Like in Texas, when Texas froze over, they're like, well, we're fucked. We're going to be here for a while.
I mean, it'll happen occasionally, right? The smart people just stay your ass at home. And, you know, like I said, we get to shoot year round. January and February are our coldest months. So it gets to be, you know, not as fun, especially if you're shooting a handgun division because, you know, your hands don't do so well and you feel every single power factor your gun's spitting out, but we can do it.
Oh yeah. Like locally here, like we don't have a lot of indoor ranges indoor clubs, I should say. So we don't have a lot of indoor clubs, but most ranges will still shoot steel challenge outside through the winter just because you can leave the steel up. You don't have to
paint it a different color.
Yeah. Yep. That's for sure. You paint it black or whatever or something. So then you can see it, but you're not trompsing through bad, but yeah, well, like my club, they'll shoot. It seems like the summertime will take steel challenge will go away just because of majors and shit that goes on at the club. It's like, we don't have time to set up the steel or it's like there's 6-7 fucking people shooting steel challenge and they're shooting 4 guns a piece. And it's like,
that's always irritating. Even for like, there's a few USPSA clubs down here that allow for that. A guy shooting a handgun division plus PCC or whatever. And like, I just avoid those squads like the plague because that guy's going to spend his whole day just loading and managing guns and definitely not helping reset stages.
Now it'd be really cool is like if you could have like a 2-day format, like for the match, like one day you could shoot it twice. You could either shoot it like say you could do it. This is hypothetical, but you shoot Saturday and Sunday, but you shoot 2 completely different divisions, right? Sure. So then you know, sure you're shooting the same stages, but you're shooting you're shooting with two different guns, and then you don't have to manage it like people shooting two guns at the same time. And because they're half the time they ain't gonna do shit because they're not resetting because they're getting one gun ready or setting another gun up, or it's
So do you shoot a lot of Steel Challenge? I'll ask you a question for a change.
No, actually, I don't. I will be. I'll be shooting Steel Challenge here in the winter because I'll get the new open gun at some point. So, without a bunch of local matches, I'll go shoot some Steel Challenge to get transitions and figure the gun out.
I don't shoot a ton of Steel Challenge. In fact, I'm only A class with PCCO in Steel Challenge. But yeah, it's fantastic practice for transitions because there's no Charlies on a steel plate. It's a miss.
Yep, exactly. And just getting used to the gun, it'll be nice. And usually, if it gets cold, we have the little propane heater sitting in the one little shed thing. Just like turn it on. We'll sit here for an hour and like, all right, let's go back to shooting. So
sure.
Yeah. So, and even though I'm Steel Challenge endorsed, I still have never worked a Steel Challenge. I haven't shot a Steel Challenge match at all. So I'm like, okay, I guess I know the rules.
I have an RO endorsement. I have done nothing except club matches and probably very poorly at that.
No, but you think about it. So you've got yours, you're an RO, but if you hadn't taken the seminar, would you have known some of the rules that have saved your butt at some matches?
So it's interesting you say that because my very first major, I actually had a popper calibration issue. Center punched a big popper that was set heavy, and like it was my very first major. Nobody told me I could call for calibration until we were off that bay at our next stage, and like somebody asked me about it. So yeah, I definitely have been burned by the rules. So being an RO and in fact, the main reason I became an RO was to learn the rules and then also help out. Since my club hosted the Georgia State Championship the past 2 years, I acted as a CRO on a stage. So definitely helped to run stages smoothly. Two years running for hundreds and hundreds of shooters. I had one reshoot, and that was because of a pad problem where a guy like keyed the key score on the wrong shooter, and when it came time to transfer it, like the guy never got a chance to hit accept. Like he saw his score, but like my guy hit accept and then transferred it. So like the guy didn't like his scores, and we called the range master and he got a reshoot. But in terms of like the stage running, not a single reshoot. I don't play that.
There you go. That's always beneficial.
And yeah, I know the rules inside and out. Any major competitor should. Blows my mind that there are some top competitors that have never held an RO certification. Some of the rules are intuitive and you just know what's not right, but there's a lot of things that people think aren't right and should be a rule, and they're just not. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and there's people nowadays who are like, oh, put the whole seminar online. Do you think you'd have gotten as much out of it if it was all online than having to invest the time to go to the class?
The class portion, yeah. So first off, most of the ROs in our sport, they suck. They're terrible. Mm-hmm. They're warm bodies because, let's be honest, a lot of the people that participate in a very high level are retirees. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they just have a large amount of time to dedicate to their hobbies. Unlike, somebody like myself, relatively young guy, got young kids. I don't have a ton of time to dedicate to that stuff. So like, thankfully, thanks. First of all, thanks to those guys for supporting and working matches. But the amount of poor officiating I've seen at level 2s and level 3s and even nationals, where you just have guys that they're not good shooters and not good ROs, or maybe they're great shooters and they're just bad ROs because the two aren't, it's not mutually exclusive. But there's some really bad officiating in this sport in terms of shooters or ROs that are just out of position. They get caught watching a shooter shoot versus ROing a stage. There's just a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I don't have a solution to that problem because it's manpower related, and short of paying people, I don't know how you get more people to participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like paying, I mean, like not here's $150 stipend that you also have to put towards your hotel,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is definitely a difficult part, right? Of getting valid and better than warm bodies, being picky. I think Steger last year, he was the match director for Wisconsin, and he kind of weeded out, so they say was bad staff, but they handpicked who they were going to use, right? So they didn't just accept everybody, which anyone's prerogative, right? They can do what they want, but you get to pick and then have the best possible match experience, I guess, for your competitors.
At the very least, yeah, handpicking the CRO, even if you have to take some warm bodies that maybe aren't the best ROs, having a strong CRO that understands shooting, understands the rules, and knows how to run a stage. can solve a lot of that, right? Because like, did I have all the best ROs working my stages? No, of course not. There were guys out there that really weren't better. You know, they weren't hardly had enough competency just to pace targets, right? They were constantly trying to like tape something before it was scored, or forgetting to go tape some obscure target, right? It's like, but that all comes down to the CRO being on top of it. And thankfully, my match director here locally kind of tapped me to step up and do that, because as I mentioned, I just have an RO certification, but you don't actually have to be a CRO to CRO a stage, at least not at a level 2. So I was CRO both years for mine, just with an RO certification, and ran a stage tighter than most dudes I've seen at nationals.
Well, and it also, I think that also dictates the level of the club, right? Right. You want to have, you can have good staff, especially if you don't have bad club culture, right? Like there's a lot of club culture. Nothing against people who try to do this, but the scoring early during like a local match, it's like some people are like, no, we're going to score it all at the end like a major, because you don't miss anything that way. But if you got the one guy, like, I don't know, the tablet guy hunting and pecking and looking at targets.
Yeah. So I actually have super strong feelings on that, right? Because it is a cultural problem in not just indoor matches, but level 1s that people want to do that. And they're doing it with good intentions, right? To keep the match flow going, get things going fast. But it rarely saves time, right? Because if there is a single problem, that erases all the time that you save for your entire squad through that one problem, through a reshoot, or, you know, calling a range master, or whatever the case is. But more importantly, it takes the scoring guy out of the equation for doing his job of ROing, watching for 180s, watching for foot faults and things like that he needs to be assisting the main stage RO with. That's my biggest beef with it, is that when your eyes are in the pad, your eyes aren't where they should be, which is on the shooter and on the stage.
Right. Your time to be in the pad is when you're actually scoring it, like after the stage, after he's done running it, right?
Yeah, like until the gun is in the holster or the PCC is flagged, your eyes should be on that shooter.
Absolutely. I 100% agree on that one. Now that you say flag in it, your PCC, locally, do you have any issues with other than yourself, PCC shooters who take too damn long to get, like, who aren't ready when it's their time to shoot?
So, yeah, so some of that comes down to the club, right? My club is actually really nice, where we have a safe table on every bay. So one side of the bay has a safe table, and the opposite side has a PCC staging area. So this is actually another raised surface, so another table effectively. It's got a big sign that says, "Hey, this is your PCC bagging area." So you unbag your PCC there, and you're good to go. And it's close, you know, relatively close to the shooting area. So are there guys that are problematic or just aloof? Certainly. Are there guys that are delayed because they're actually out there helping and taping resetting stages and stuff like that, and just forgot where they were in the order? Yeah. Do you have guys that had like a 8-minute make ready process? Sure, you got that too, but that's just part of the game. It's allowed by the rules. That's the shooter's time, in my opinion. You take whatever time you need to assess your stage plan, get your heart rate where it needs to be, calm your breathing. But dudes that, like, their gun's still in the bag and they're the shooter, like, I got a little beef with that. But some of it is circumstantial based on the range. Like if there's no PCC area and, you know, you got to put your stuff by the berm 30 yards away from the start position, you know, there's circumstances, but it's not just a PCC thing. There's plenty of pistol shooters that take their sweet time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But is yours always in a bag, or do you have you used like the gun cart kind of mentality of like?
No, I just do bag. I do like a backpack style rifle bag. I've got like a cart, like a pull behind, like beach cart that I use sometimes. But the problem with that is, like, some ranges just aren't well suited for it. If it's rocky terrain or, you know, super thick gravel or something like that, the carts are not usually an advantage. And back to the consistency thing. If you want to win matches, it's got to be consistent, and that consistency starts before you leave the house, right? It's your prep. How are you packing your gear? How did you load your ammo? And when you get to the range, are you doing all the same stuff over and over again? So rarely do I take that card to a major, because I don't want to have something simple like that change anything about what I do during the make ready process or between stages and stuff like that. So
right.
Throw the bag in the dirt by the berm, pull the rifle out, do you think?
So when you go to a match, do you have like that rifle bag plus another range bag, or is it all fit in that one rifle bag?
I've done both. So I've done just a rifle bag, like a little 511 bag or something like that holds a carbine and not much more. And then, you know, I'll carry a backpack that I'll like throw on the front, kind of baby style, and carry all my other stuff in there. I'm actually using a rifle bag from a company called Savior Equipment right now. I've had it for 2 or 3 weeks. I basically got it when I got my new Davinci gun.
Oh, so it came with the Davinci gun, right?
No, it didn't come with it. No, they actually came in a very nice hard case, but I don't use that for match transport. But because of the side charging handle, I knew it was going to be a little more of a challenge to get 2 PCCs in the bag. Mm-hmm. So I wanted something a little bit bigger than I had, and it just so worked out. Not only would it hold the 2 PCCs, but it had enough storage in there that I could get all my mags, all my other, rags for cleaning glasses and lube and tools and all that stuff. So I'm currently experimenting with a single bag system.
Well, there you go. Well, especially in most times, you're walking bay to bay. You're not walking that far. Depending on the range, right? You could be walking.
Depending upon the range, exactly.
Right. I'm very lucky. Our range is awesome because it's literally like frostproof, where it's fucking rows of bays.
All in a row.
Yeah.
And now I'm excited.
Yeah.
Now you've got my attention. As much as I like shooting the Kentucky match because the stages are fun, their bay layout is not so ideal, where it's broken up into a couple different zones and there's like hundreds of feet of elevation change between the different zones.
Yeah.
Leif did add some transport options. He hooked a trailer up to his truck and was hauling people around from the very far zone back to zone 1. So that was good. That was a nice addition, but still some hill climbing to be done.
Yeah. Definitely. As long as people have that suited out, right? Because it's a pain in the ass when you're like, oh, I got to walk all that way. Yeah. And it's, I've watched, I think there's been videos or pictures of Logan and Larry from McCarver fucking hauling ass with their damn little strollers. It's funny to watch them go. It's funny.
Logan and Larry.
Those two forever, right? Like those two are hilarious. God. But other than Area 5 and Nationals, do you have any other major matches still on the books?
Yes, quite a few actually. So I've shot 4, I think. I missed one because back in April, was it April? Right after Area 6, I tore my calf muscle at an indoor match. So I was sidelined for about 5 or 6 weeks and missed the South Carolina championship. But so I shot Florida section or Florida State, whatever that was, down in at the Wyoming Antelope Club back in January. I shot the Alabama sectional match. I shot Area 6. Was supposed to shoot South Carolina, so that was 4. Still remaining, I've got Area 5. I've got the Carolina Classic and the Tennessee section match both in the same weekend, so I'm shooting those back to back. I'm going to shoot Tennessee on staff day and then drive over to Charlotte and shoot the Carolina Classic. I've got Nationals in October. I'm going to shoot Gator Classic out in Louisiana. That's in early November. And then one of the Davinci guys I saw is shooting a match called it's a North Florida section match or something like that. May even try to jump on that. So I'll probably end up around 10 majors this year.
Oh, there you go. That's exciting, especially when you can piece it out, right, and time it out.
It's fun, man. I like traveling. I like to see new people. I like to squad with people I haven't squatted before. New personalities. Different ranges. It's a lot of fun. The people are what make the sport fun. So getting out to ranges that you haven't shot at before, and traveling to majors especially, because you see people that you might only see them once or twice a year, and it's just a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's always a bunch of fun, especially when your significant other actually lets you leave and be gone for a while.
My wife is very supportive in that regard. Yeah, so that's like I said, I don't practice much, and that's kind of the trade-off. That would I love to practice? Of course, I'd love to practice. I'm a competitive person, and if I don't win, I get very upset by that. So practice is in the future as my kids get a little bit older. That's definitely something I'm going to add back into the mix. But for right now, the system kind of works. I've had a modicum of success doing what I'm doing, so it works for now.
Fair enough. And without that support system, I mean, we wouldn't be able. Nobody, I think, would be able to go do what they want to do on the weekends, unless you're a single person living with mom and dad and being the 40-year-old virgin, right?
We trade off, right? My wife's got the things that she does. She's a big Disney fanatic, so she likes to go to Disney. She also, as part of the Disney experience, likes to do the Disney races, the Run Disney races. So she does like marathons and half marathons, and does a few of those at the Disney parks and things like that. So that's kind of her jam. So, she runs and I shoot.
There you go. Well, I mean, as long as there's that trade-off in that balance, right? Because, God, I don't think you'd want to be gone every weekend shooting a match without seeing your kids, though, right?
It would be exhausting. Yeah, I mean, the kids, especially at the young ages that they're at, every minute away from them kind of stinks, right? Because they're learning new stuff and they're almost like new people when you get back after a 2 or 3 day trip. So, it's not fun to be away, but we've all got our passions that keep us going in life, right?
Exactly. Well, we're near the very end, but we do got to pay the bills. So we got to pay the sponsors' bills. So, Jason, who are you affiliated and sponsored by?
Yeah. So first, I'll say this: you mentioned Larry and Logan. I never really sought out to do the whole sponsor thing when it came to shooting. Shooting was just fun. It was an outlet, just something to do after work and clear my mind. But I got connected with Logan, 357 Souls. I'm sure he needs no introduction to your audience. His reputation precedes himself. But he got me connected with M Carbo, who is my main sponsor today. M Carbo is based out of the Tampa St. Pete area. It's a better known company. They make like small performance parts, mostly trigger groups, spring kits, and things like that for some popular guns, some less more obscure guns, so some rifles and stuff like that. But do a lot of high performance parts. Make all their stuff there in Florida, so it's American made stuff, owned by a veteran, great company, and they were my very first supporter, and I've been with them now for 2 years. So M Carbo has treated me phenomenally. Plus, I get to hang out and shoot with Larry and Logan. So I should be paying for that honor myself.
Oh, don't let him hear you that, because he'd be like, "Pay up, motherfucker."
Yeah, you got to pat that guy on the back occasionally. Obviously Davinci's in the fold now, so having an awesome new gun, plus the support structure with David and team down there, and the shooting team, right? Having other folks to bounce ideas off of. Some of their newer shooters that hopefully we can mentor and turn into better shooters through the years as they progress through the sport. So Davinci is another good supporter of mine that I hope to have a super long relationship with. I love the gun so far, and I hope that continues. 1776 United, it's actually the hat you got going on here. 1776 United is a patriotic apparel company based here out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's actually run by a personal friend of mine. I've known the guy, actually known him since I played paintball, right? So known this guy for over 20 years, just a phenomenal local company. Has some of the softest, most comfortable shirts out there. So if you don't like heavyweight, itchy t-shirts, he's your guy. Plus lots of patriotic slogans. Does obviously hats, other soft goods and things like that. So lots and lots of things to do there. Brass Monkey Bullets, Jason and team out of Tennessee, with the primer shortage and component shortage, a lot of bullet companies kind of struggled back in 2020 to provide product. And it was just perfect timing that, again, through Tom Castro, I'm going to throw his name out there again. So both Davinci and Davinci and Brass Monkey Bullets kind of came because of Tom's relationship with him. So obviously I knew the name from there, explored a little bit what they were, ordered some bullets to test. They worked out phenomenally. So I've been shooting Brass Monkey here for 2 years now. Great product, based in Tennessee, so real close to me, so I can get product really fast. And he ships it lightning fast. Most times my orders ship same day, and being 180 miles away, I usually have them next day, maybe 2 days. So you can't beat that. And then last but certainly not least is Breek Arms. Breek Arms is a company not quite your way, but they're based out of Minnesota. Another American company. So they make all their parts there locally in the Minnesota area. So they do the Warhammer charging handles. I'll pull this guy out here. So aside from my side charger, their Warhammer charging handle is what I use for my normal rear charging handle. It is, I've run all the charging handles through the years, Radian, BCM, various others that are geared towards, competition stuff. It's a tremendous product. It ticks all those boxes again, where it's got the nice wide latch. It's easy to operate. It's truly ambi, so it's easy to operate from either side. And it's an incredible value with, some sales from some of, they carry them at Brownells and Primary Arms, or you can buy direct from Breek and they ship for free. But it's like a $35 to $40 charging handle if you catch it on sale or using my discount code. And, so it's like half the price. It's American made, and it's a phenomenal product. Plus they do hand guards and muzzle devices and things like that. So they've been a good supporter now for about a year, been on board with those guys. And like most relationships should be, I was using their product before I got connected with them. I also just bought the product randomly because I had a new build, needed a charging handle. I think Primary Arms had a sale, or I forget, maybe I think it was Primary Arms, but had a sale. I bought it just to try, because we all like to try new gear and new things. And it was phenomenal. It worked great, and the price point could not be beat. And then Breek was seeking some shooters last summer, and we got connected and been doing our thing ever since.
Well, that's really cool. That's awesome that, you stand behind these products and they stand behind you, because, it's always about those relationships that we build in this kind of sport. They can't do it without us. We can't do it without them. So it's kind of nice. And yeah, it's always good. Good companies too. That's always fun. Now, Jason, where can they find you at on the internet?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is mostly family related stuff. So unless you've met my family or we've sat down and drank way too many beers together, probably not going to connect with you there. But you can find me on Instagram at FC Jason. It's actually FC_ Jason because somebody else took my handle there. That bastard. But FC_ Jason on Instagram. Reach out to me if you got any questions about my gear, reloading. Need a discount code for some bullets or some charging handles or anything like that, you can catch me on there. And yeah, I'm on there way too much. So come have a chat.
Well, that's we all spend way too much time on Instagram, but it's okay. That's how these things work, though, right?
Yeah.
You just spend too much time on the internet. But Jason, I want to thank you for coming on, sir. It's been a blast. It's been a fun one. I've learned a lot, and I think the listeners definitely will pull something out of this one. So thank you for your time. And listeners, thank you for watching. Until next time, get out and do the things, and I will see you on the next one.